Hello, my name is Edward Calvespert, and this is a demo of IBM's Bluemix Data Connect self-service data preparation and integration service available via Bluemix and formerly known as IBM DataWorks. We're going to walk you through the main features of the offering today, including some of the new features like the ability to schedule and edit activities, as well as some roadmap items like our new canvas to design data flow. The first thing that a user has to do is get access to their data. And we do that by creating a connection. We've got connections to a variety of different data sources, including all the main relational databases, both on-premise and in the cloud, as well as file stores like Amazon S3 or Bluemix Object Store, as well as applications like Salesforce.com. For the purpose of the demo, we'll use Bluemix Object Store. And we need the connection details in order to set up our connection. So we'll go to Bluemix Object Store and look at the service credentials. And we'll just go ahead and pick these up one at a time. We've got our URL, project ID, our region, our user ID, and finally our password. We'll give our connection a name, and we'll go ahead and create it. Alright, so we've got our connection. Next step is to go back to Bluemix one more time and drag and drop our files, create a container, and we've got a couple of CSV files here with some customer and some order data that we'll drag and drop into Bluemix Object Store. And now we're ready to start working with the data. Back in DataWorks, back in Bluemix Data Connect, we go to Refine and Copy, and we find our connection that we just created, Object Store Demo. We've got our Connect container, and here are the two files that we're going to be working with. We can see that there's a preview of the file, and there's also the ability to configure the details of the CSV encoding to make sure that the file is properly ingested. We'll go ahead and use the defaults, and we'll start refining the data. Okay. So we've got two files here. We'll go ahead and explore the data and also get here details about the data. How many rows, how many columns, the reasons why we're getting a 97% quality score, the data classifications that have already been inferred by the system, and then also the data types that we're working with. We can also get quality and distribution details at the column level. So here we see each of the various columns, the quality, and a small histogram of the distribution of the data in that column. So going to operations, we'll start by looking at some of the suggested operations that the system has already identified for us would improve the quality of this data. And we'll start here with the state code that we can see it has some formatting issues, and we want to go ahead and standardize that. Oh, there we go. With just a couple of clicks, we're able to clean up that state column in the standard state code format. We've got a couple of rows here that we want to remove. columns that we want to remove from our data set. And moving on to the address, we can see that we've got some extra white space here. It's a text column, so we can go text operations and trim. We can trim leading, trailing, all white space. If we didn't know what we were looking for, we could search for it, or white space. There we go. Now we've got a nicely formatted address column. Keep moving over to the left here, and we want to concatenate and standardize our first and last names into a full name. So we'll go to standardize. We'll pick the columns first and last. We'll pick the US name rule set from the various that we have here. And we want to title case that. And here we go. We've got a new column called full name that concatenated and title cased the first and last name. Just keep looking at the data here. Got another column that we can remove. All right, now we want to join this data set with the other file that we brought through that has information about orders relating to these customers. So we'll go to join, pick the keys, and the way we want to perform the join, click join. And instead of spending time doing a VLOOKUP in Excel, which could take forever and can be error prone, we quickly joined these two files together. The light blue line represents the original one, and now the pink one represents the file that we added. You can see this is an example of how we can easily enrich data that can be in our transactional systems or systems of record or our master data sets with data coming from multiple sources in a variety of different formats. We can look at our history, see all the various activities that we have performed on this data set. We can easily undo if we want to go back, and we can go ahead and create the activity to operationalize this this recipe on this data set. So we'll click next. We're going to put the data back into Object Store, but we could put it into Watson Analytics, we could put it into DB, we could put it into Amazon S3, basically all the various connections that I've created here. But for the purpose of the demo, we'll go ahead back into Object Store. We're working with CSV files, but it could also be Avro, Parquet, or JSON files. A lot of variety here in terms of file types. And we're going to go ahead and give this new file a name. All right. Just like we did at the beginning, we can configure the encoding for the CSV file. We'll give the activity a name. And now we can either save it for later, schedule it to run, or run it right now, which is what we'll do. All right, and now we can see that our demo activity is running. Go ahead and look at the details of the activity. We can see the input, the actions that we're performing on that data set, and then the output. This is the metadata related to the lineage we could then consume into the information governance catalog and represent in a unified way. If we wanted to schedule this on a daily or hourly basis, we could easily do that to operationalize this activity. And we can see here that the activity is completed. Go back to Object Store. And here we are back in Object Store. And we can see the file that we just created. All right, now back to Bluemix Data Connect. Next thing I want to show is what we call the canvas, or the design data flow activity. And this is the environment where an analyst and an engineer can create a data integration pipeline and visualize it in the canvas. Now, data integration pipeline is very similar to a shaping activity which we just created, but it'll allow you to, in addition to visualize it, it'll support additional capabilities like a mapping transformer to map data formats between sources and targets, additional data combination transformers to merge, funnel, and lookup in addition to join, and also the ability to have multiple targets. So multiple sources, more complex transformers to multiple targets, and the ability to define them in a visual representation. So we'll start like we did before with our data sources, and we can have multiple data sources from the same connection or multiple connections. Okay. We can look at the details of each of the data sets like we had before. And we'll start by joining these two data sets together. Selecting a key, join method, and we can see how we start to build out that pipeline. The next step is to prepare a data set. And as you can see, it's bringing up the exact same shaping environment that we had before. So we can very easily perform the data shaping operations, standardization, removing empty rows here in our state column. We can remove columns. We can trim text. So any of the over 70 data shaping operations and data standardization operations that we support in Data Connect, accessible here from the Canvas environment, but through the interactive shaper. All right, and the next thing we can do is we can establish a target for this activity. We could target Watson Analytics, we could target DB or any other relational data source in the cloud or on-prem, Amazon S3, which is another file store. We'll pick Object Store again. We can see that we've got multiple file types supported. We can configure the encoding of that file type. We can give it a name. And here we can see how we've represented this data pipeline in our canvas very easily. And you could imagine a data engineer setting up these data integration pipelines and then collaborating with the business analyst that has access to the shaper to continue to enrich and prepare and improve the quality of that data set. The canvas similarly creates an activity which can be run, scheduled, and also edited. One of the new features that we recently introduced is the ability to edit activities. So I'll go ahead into one of these activities that we created earlier, and I will open the activity. And using the activity history, we're able to undo any of the operations that we performed and redo them differently, add to them, and that way continue to enhance the quality of that data set. We could add additional data sources to the activity if we wanted to enrich it with additional data. So here's our activity. We can, the last thing we did was join. We can back out of that, and we could take this down a different path, change the name, and now we have a new activity. So to summarize, we created connections to our data stores, both sources and target. We showed the interactive shaping. We showed how to operationalize the shaping activity, how to schedule it, how to design a data flow with the canvas, and then how to come back and enhance, edit, and continue to enrich our data sets with Bluemix Data Connect. Thank you very much.